I heard the fork clink against her plate as my daughter-in-law laughed. We married yesterday, certain the venue was hers. Still, I only straightened the napkin on my lap, letting her confidence echo a little too long. As the chandelier's warm hum thickened above us, it carried the truth she didn't know she was standing on. While that low light hovered, it reminded me whose signature actually held this place upright. The same glow made it clear, she was celebrating on land she never earned. That's when I decided her laughter would be the first thing to fall silent. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence, it lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. It started with Cheryl Lambert's grocery bags. She was unloading a trunk full of kombucha and spring flowers when she spotted me by the mailbox and said, "You must be over the moon. Landon and Bailey just toured the Ridge. My niece works events there. Six-figure views, Clara." I smiled, the kind of practiced, pleasant thing that looks like agreement. Then I walked back inside and boiled water for tea I didn't want. They hadn't told me. Not a word, not even a polite text, "Hey, we're checking out venues," just nothing. I suppose I shouldn't have been surprised. Lately, everything between us had narrowed down to logistics and link sharing. Bailey sent me Pinterest boards with color palettes I'd never asked for. Landon dropped hints about menu upgrades, but he never actually said what anything cost. It was all illusion, curated excitement without substance. That's how they liked it. Still, something about the Ridge caught my attention. I called Debbie. She picked up on the second ring as she always did. "You're early," she said, checking the time. "It's not our usual call day." "I need you to find out something for me," I said, quietly. I gave her the name of the venue, the Ridge, mountain-facing, private, sunset-facing. It was the kind of place you didn't stumble onto, you researched it, angled for it, chased it. An hour later, Debbie called back. "It's off-market," she said. "The owners are older, they're retiring, but they didn't want a public sale. Word is they're looking for someone who respects the land. And they'd sell to a trust, full cash offer, no questions asked." I didn't hesitate, move the money, use my family trust, keep my name out of it, all of it. "You don't want them to know?" Debbie asked. "I want a clean closing in silence, that's all." She didn't push, she never did, that's why I kept her. 3 days later it was done, the land, the buildings, the long gravel drive, all of it mine, quiet, precise, untouchable. The next time I saw Landon, we were standing in line at the coffee shop near his office. He was glowing, talking fast, clutching his phone like it had good news written on the screen. "Bailey pulled it off," he said, half laughing. "She got the Ridge for half what they normally charge. It's like she charmed them or something." I stirred my coffee slowly. "Is that so?" "Yeah, she's amazing. People underestimate her, but she gets what she wants. You should have seen the view, unreal." I nodded, then took a sip. The cream was sour, but I didn't flinch. He didn't ask how I was, he didn't mention inviting me to the venue tour, he never even looked up from his phone. Later that evening, I sat at my kitchen table with the deed open in front of me. My name wasn't on it per se, the trust owned the asset, but Debbie had placed a marker in the corner of the document, CMR 67 private. That was ours, enough to hold, enough to prove if ever needed. I folded it gently and slid it back into the drawer next to my father's watch, my husband's service pin, and a handwritten letter Landon had once mailed me from college. That night, Bailey posted a video on Instagram, a sweeping slow-motion clip of her walking the grounds in a linen dress, wind catching her hair just so. The caption read, "Manifestation works, sparkles, we dreamed it, we earned it." I watched the video twice, then powered off my phone. They didn't know the land belonged to someone who didn't need credit to feel its worth. But one day they would. And I'd be here when that day came. The sun hadn't cleared the tree line when I pulled into the gravel lot. I'd chosen a side space far from the bridal arrivals, near a patch of shade where the grass held on a little longer than the rest. I always liked to be early. Early meant quiet. It gave you time to see how people moved before they knew you were watching. The Ridge looked beautiful, I'll give them that. They'd added arches at the main path, eucalyptus and gauze, nothing original but expensive enough to look effortless. A man in a vest was hauling folding chairs two at a time, sweat darkening the back of his shirt. Music leaked from a Bluetooth speaker near the reception barn, acoustic covers of songs I didn't recognize. Inside, the coordinator, a girl with a clipboard and no warmth in her eyes, skimmed her list. "And your name?" "Clara Mitchell." She clicked something on her tablet, didn't frown but didn't smile either. Not seeing that on the primary chart. No worries, we have overflow." "Overflow." She led me past the polished center tables, gold flatware, hand-lettered place cards, little jars of curated honey, and into a back corner near the kitchen doors. A round table for 6, 2 seats already taken by someone's aunt and a florist's cousin. I sat down without comment. The chair was metal and wobbled slightly. From where I was placed, I could see the servers forming a line to receive their tray assignments. One of them was no older than Nora. She looked terrified of spilling. I poured myself a glass of water. 10 minutes later, Bailey floated in like a woman arriving at her own parade. White lace clung to her shoulders, hair swept into something loose and expensive. She scanned the crowd, then caught sight of me and glided over with a smile too wide for sincerity. "Oh, there you are, hope you don't mind the view." She didn't wait for an answer. She turned back toward the photographers, laughing at something no one had said. I took a sip of water and counted the catering staff again, 7 on the floor, 2 behind the bar, 1 coordinating drop-offs. Young, fast, underpaid. My phone buzzed in my lap. "Debbie Chan. Title transfer complete. You now officially own the land, the building, and the parking lot." No emojis, no flourish, just truth. I didn't smile, but something inside me settled. I slipped the phone back into my clutch. I didn't need to read it twice. The ceremony passed in a blur of soft music and curated vowels. Someone cried, not Landon. He looked good, I'll admit. Nervous in the way boys get when the image matters more than the moment. By the time we were ushered into the reception barn, I had already memorized every corner of the space. They'd overfilled the head table with too many bridesmaids. None of them made room for me. When the toasts began, Bailey stood first. She raised her glass, beaming. "We planned this ourselves," she said, proud and breathy. "Every last detail, no sponsors, no favors, no strings attached, just vision, just love, just us." Applause followed, loud and easy, the kind that doesn't ask questions. I didn't clap. I looked down at my water glass and watched the way the overhead lights broke into fractured shapes on the surface. Someone bumped my chair on the way to the kitchen. They didn't apologize. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Bailey glance in my direction. Just a flicker, not long enough to hold eye contact, but enough to check that I'd heard her. I had. And I would remember. Not because it hurt, not even because it was untrue. But because she said it without shame, without pause. As if the ground under her feet had grown itself. I took another sip and waited. 3 days after the wedding, my neighbor forwarded me a video with the subject line, "You must be so proud." It was Bailey, of course it was. She posted a wedding recap on Instagram, edited like a lifestyle ad, soft film grain overlays, cello music in the background, and captions like "dream location," self-funded, 0 compromises. I watched it twice without sound. The filters made the sky look pinker than it had been. The gravel driveway shimmered unnaturally, as if the ground itself approved of her. She tagged the ridge directly. Her caption read, "Manifest your moment, budget bride, no help needed." I didn't comment. Instead, I forwarded the link to Debbie with just one sentence, "Is this ours?" She replied within the hour. "Debbie Chan. Yes, that's the ridge, and yes, she's claiming it as theirs, want me to step in." I answered with only 4 words, "Let her promote it." And then I added, "Just not for long." I didn't want noise, I wanted the shape of silence, the kind that shifts under a person once they believe it's solid. Later that week, Bailey uploaded another post, this time with a longer caption. "Exciting news, we're partnering with a wedding platform to share our planning tips and favorite vendors from our big day, including the venue that made it all possible. Stay tuned, ring." She attached affiliate codes. She tagged the planners, the florist, even the champagne vendor. She tagged the ridge again. What she didn't know, what she never thought to ask, was that all brand usage of the property name required written consent, and none had been granted. Debbie had quietly filed the name and its associated image rights under a local LLC controlled through the trust. Nothing splashy, nothing loud, just firm, fine print with legal weight. The former venue manager, Helen, now retired and living in Arden, saw the post and forwarded it directly to Debbie. Her message read, "I thought the new owner didn't want publicity." Debbie responded with a two-line reply and copied me. "See? Orect, I'll take care of it, thanks Helen." And just like that, the strings tightened. The wedding platform Bailey had applied to, one of those glossy, influencer-friendly startups where couples pitch their own stories for micro-sponsorship deals, ran a quick check before approving. They reached out to verify brand usage. The request landed on Debbie's desk. She flagged it, replied once, brief and ironclad. "Use of the Ridge name and associated imagery is currently restricted. Consent required from legal property owner. At this time, no permission has been granted." By Friday, Bailey received the first notice. "Venue usage pending owner consent. Please remove all branded references until verification is completed." I imagined her sitting on the edge of their tufted cream sofa, staring at her phone in disbelief, wondering who could have reported her, wondering why she suddenly needed permission for something she was so sure she'd earned. She didn't call me. Of course not. Instead, she made her next move public, a carefully worded Instagram story saying, "Taking a quick pause on brand content to realign our goals. All love, all gratitude." But the sparkle had dulled. There was something brittle now in the way she posed. Something slightly too stiff in the smiles. That night, I sat in my kitchen again, same chair, same drawer open. The deed sat beneath the old watch and service pin unchanged. No reaction, no need for one. But the power had shifted. Not because I'd taken anything away, but because, for the first time, she realized she hadn't actually held it. I turned off my phone before bed. Let her wonder who told them no. She'd find out soon enough. Monday morning, my phone buzzed with a calendar alert from Debbie, not a meeting, just a document review. She always framed things like that, no pressure, no trail. I opened the file over my second cup of tea. It was the finalized purchase agreement, 17 pages, clean language, and buried halfway down under Schedule B, Section 6, no third-party monetization of property name, likeness, or imagery permitted without written approval of managing trustee. I remembered adding that clause with Debbie back in January. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. It just felt necessary, a quiet net in case the story they spun ever reached too far. I hadn't blocked Bailey. I hadn't even denied her request. I'd simply done nothing. By Tuesday afternoon, Debbie forwarded me a voicemail transcription from the venue line. Landon had called. "Hi, this is Landon Mitchell, just wondering who we talked to about resolving some confusion around brand permissions. We had an event here recently and we were told someone else now oversees usage rights. Can you call me back?" He didn't get a call back. The front office staff followed protocol. All brand inquiries were referred to the trust's legal contact, Debbie. Bailey, from what I could gather, wasn't used to being denied without explanation. She posted less frequently that week. Only a story here and there, filtered coffee, a stack of wedding thank you cards, a vague quote, "The right people don't need convincing." But something shifted. She started looking for answers. I got the call from Landon on Wednesday night. I didn't answer, let it go to voicemail, same as always, but he didn't leave a message. Instead, 20 minutes later, he sent a text. "Did you have anything to do with the venue rights thing? Bailey's trying to figure it out." I stared at the screen. There was no punctuation, no warmth, just a question carved flat like he didn't want to know the answer but needed to rule it out. I didn't respond. By Thursday, Bailey was asking directly. She caught Landon in the kitchen, their kitchen, and asked as casually as she could manage. Are you sure your mom didn't help pay for the ridge, like not even a little? Landon laughed, according to what I heard later. She doesn't even like it, said it was overdone. Why would she put money into something she wasn't invited to tour? A fair point. One she'd built her entire illusion on. That afternoon, I drove up to the ridge alone. No press, no audience, just me in a long cardigan and old walking shoes with a thermos of coffee and a notebook that stayed closed. The air was different on a weekday, no music, no heels, just wind. I walked the long path behind the barn where the pine needles had started to gather again. I counted 5 new tire marks in the gravel, probably vendors or photographers. There was a ribbon tied to one of the fence posts, forgotten, faded. The view hadn't changed. Neither had the feeling it gave me. I didn't need ownership to feel peace, but it was interesting how still the place felt when no one was performing for it. My phone buzzed once, a message from Debbie. Debbie Chan. She called again, asking why she needs approval. I told her it's in the contract. I typed back slowly. Let her read it, every word. I stood at the edge of T. Hill, looking out across the tree line. The sky was clear, not dramatic, not filtered, just real. Then I heard it. A car engine on the gravel. Not close yet, not hurrying. Just approaching. I stayed where I was. Whoever was coming had questions. But I had time. By Monday, Bailey had shifted from passive quotes to action. She submitted a full sponsorship proposal to a boutique bridal skincare brand, glossy deck, high-res shots of the ridge, even a short video clip of her walking the property in slow motion, barefoot and radiant. Minimalism meets mountain elegance, the tagline read. They liked it enough to move forward, but like every smart brand, they did their due diligence. They contacted the venue for location licensing, requested a waiver, and waited. It didn't take long. The PR rep, a young woman named Erica, emailed Bailey's team back. Unfortunately, per the legal property owner, commercial use of the venue is currently prohibited without written authorization. Your request has been denied. No follow-up, no room to negotiate. Bailey read the line 3 times before forwarding the message to Landon. Her caption above it read, "What the hell does this mean?" By noon, Debbie had received an angry voicemail, a follow-up email, and a second brand attempting to verify rights. She didn't escalate. She responded once formally, without emotion, and attached the deed. It bore a date 6 months prior, stamped, signed, and filed. Owner of record Clara Mitchell. That was the moment the floor shifted. I wasn't there to see it, but I imagined Landon standing behind their kitchen island, phone in hand, voice going tight. Wait, she what? And Bailey, frozen, wide-eyed, 1,000 filters flickering behind her eyes, suddenly realizing the backdrop she'd built her image on wasn't hers to stand on. He called me, this time I answered. Mom, he said, half breathless, you bought the ridge. I didn't speak for a moment, let the weight settle. Then I said evenly, yes. He stopped, you didn't tell anyone. I wasn't asked, I said. But Bailey, she thought she negotiated the price. She negotiated nothing, I replied. The venue wasn't listed, it was sold privately to me. Silence stretched. Finally he asked why. I didn't owe him a speech. I sent a follow-up email with no subject line, just one sentence in the body. You're welcome. I didn't hear back. But the fallout was quick. Bailey's engagement dropped by half within 48 hours. The brands that had flagged the venue tags now began quietly pulling out, citing discrepancies in representation. Her latest post, a morning coffee photo with a link to wedding hairpins, was flooded with questions. Wait, didn't her mill buy the venue? So this wasn't self-funded. Kinda weird to brand someone else's property. She tried to bury it, posted a carousel of wedding content with a caption that read, "The only thing I ever claimed was love." But it didn't land. The comments kept coming. And the silence from the brands, the ones she'd tagged for weeks, courted for months, spoke louder than anything I could have said. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. Instead, I sat on the back porch that evening, watching the horizon turn that specific shade of October gold, the kind of color you can't stage, you have to wait for it, earn it. Debbie texted once. Debbie-chan. You sure you don't want me to issue a formal press statement, something gentle, graceful? I typed back. Let the paperwork speak. Then I closed my phone and looked out toward the ridge line, the one that gave the venue its name. She had called it a stage. But it was never built for performance. It was meant to hold weight. And now it did. The restaurant wasn't new, but it was timeless. One of those quiet, candlelit places tucked into a side street in Biltmore Village where the staff didn't introduce themselves and the linen napkins had weight. No influencers, no flash photography, just low conversation and roast duck done properly. Debbie arrived first. She always did. Black sweater, neutral lipstick, eyes that didn't miss much. She greeted me with a nod, then took the seat to my left without comment. Her presence always settled something in the room. Helen arrived 10 minutes later, a bit out of breath but smiling. I nearly missed the turn, she said, setting her scarf over the chair. They've put up new signs, trendy ones, apparently. I poured her a glass of wine, fitting, considering the guests they used to attract. Helen raised a brow. Not anymore. I shook my head, the tones changed. She leaned back. Good. We ordered simply fish for Debbie, pasta for Helen, a chopped salad for me, no desserts, no phones on the table. Halfway through the meal, Helen set down her fork and said, I wasn't going to bring this up, but I feel like I should. When Bailey and her mother toured the grounds, she made a comment, not directly to me, but loud enough to carry. She didn't pause for permission. She said something like, I can't believe old women still think they matter in this space, then laughed, like we were in the way of her vision. Debbie didn't react, she rarely did. I finished chewing, then dabbed the corner of my mouth with my napkin. She'll learn, I said quietly. Foundations don't post selfies. Helen smiled, not cruelly, but with the weariness of someone who's heard that tone before. She didn't ask a single question about the structure, just lighting angles. Debbie glanced down at her phone, not rude, just routine. Speaking of structure, she filed a challenge, Bailey, yesterday morning. Helen blinked. A legal challenge. She's contesting the ownership chain, claimed she was misled. I turned slightly in my chair. On what grounds? Debbie scrolled, skimmed, said her husband was told the venue was available at a reduced rate, that it constitutes implied partnership. Helen nearly choked on her sip of wine. That's not even a thing. Debbie nodded. It was dismissed in less than a day. Clean title, ironclad trust, the filing never had teeth. I didn't smile. I just took a breath, long and full. Landon called that night. I let it ring. No voicemail, no follow-up text, just a missed call sitting quietly between my calendar alerts and grocery reminder. I didn't call back. There was nothing left to explain. By the next morning, Bailey posted something new, a cropped black and white photo of her hands clasped over a coffee mug, nails painted pale. The caption read, Funny how people with no relevance suddenly gatekeep what you built. I read it twice, then turned off my screen. No names. But the shade was deliberate and desperate. She'd always known how to shape a narrative, but this one was cracking. She wasn't losing attention, she was losing control of the frame. I stepped out onto the porch as the sun pulled low. The ridge line caught the light exactly right, every tree silhouetted against a lavender sky. No edits, no retakes. From behind me, the land felt steady, like something finally deciding who it would allow to remain. I stood there for a while, quiet. Then in the distance, headlights turned up the drive. Slow, careful. Another car. Another approach. This time I didn't wait inside. It didn't make headlines, not at first. Just a single line in the Asheville Mountain Business Review tucked beneath a piece about real estate trends. The title was simple. Private buyer acquires Ridge venue in off-market deal. The piece was barely 300 words. No interview, no quotes. Just the legal fact, ownership of the Ridge had transferred 6 months prior to a family trust managed by one Clara E. Mitchell. There was no photo, no drama, just a name. But names are enough, especially when they don't match the version someone else's followers were promised. By mid-morning, a wedding industry blogger, one of those niche voices that straddle gossip and reporting, reposted the article with a sharper headline. Surprise buyer emerges behind trendy Asheville venue. They included side-by-side screenshots, Bailey's viral "we did it all ourselves" post followed by the business listing with my name attached. They didn't editorialize. They didn't need to. The contrast did the work. By that afternoon, Bailey's inbox was flooded not just with comments but retractions. A floral accessories brand pulled out of an upcoming shoot, citing integrity concerns. A tableware company that had previously liked and commented on her posts sent a formal email. "We no longer feature influencers whose brand narratives are inconsistent with verified vendor relationships. We wish you the best." She took it as betrayal. But I knew better. It wasn't betrayal. It was the cost of building your entire platform on illusion, and then acting surprised when the foundation turned solid beneath someone else's name. Landon tried to spin it. He posted a short note in the comments of one of Bailey's old videos. "We were just as surprised as you all. My mom's gesture was private and generous. We're deeply grateful, and we never meant to mislead." The note didn't go viral, it just hung there, quiet, uneasy. He texted me once after that. "Landon, I didn't know you were planning to go public. Was that really necessary?" I didn't answer with words. I forwarded the email I'd just sent to one of Bailey's former sponsors, a soft-spoken home goods company based out of Colorado. They'd requested license clarification for the Ridge footage used in Bailey's bridal content. My reply had been brief. No permission was granted for monetization. All branded usage remains unauthorized. I'd signed it simply. Clara Mitchell, Managing Trustee, the Ridge Family Trust. Landon didn't respond again. But Bailey did. I heard about the fight secondhand. Nora mentioned it casually the next morning while we baked scones for the church brunch. She said she overheard Bailey yelling from the hallway of their condo building. "You said she didn't give a dime, Landon. You said she didn't want anything to do with the venue." And him quieter. "She didn't until you pretended she did." I imagine the echo in their kitchen, the soft clink of the marble salt bowl she always left by the stove, the perfect light she'd chased for her content now casting shadows. For someone who curated so carefully, the truth had come in hard lines. That night, I opened the digital newsletter again, the one that quietly printed my name, and read it aloud to myself at the kitchen table. There was no drama in it, no performance. Just ink and paper. Fact and consequence. I folded it once, then slid it into the drawer with the deed, not for safekeeping, just for order. Outside, the porch light flicked on, motion sensor triggered. I stepped out to check. A delivery box sat on the step, no return label, just my name in clean black ink. I picked it up. Inside, tucked between layers of tissue paper, was a framed photo, Bailey and Landon standing on the ridge smiling at sunset. No note. Just the image. As if reminding me where I'd stood. But I hadn't forgotten. Not then, not now. And certainly not when the land under their feet belonged to someone else. The message came through on a Wednesday morning mid-laundry. "Landon, can we talk, just the two of us, not about Bailey, about everything?" I stared at the text for a full minute before pressing reply. 2 p.m. Thursday, back porch, you bring coffee, I'll bring shade. He showed up right on time, 2 cups in hand. Mine was black, no sugar, just like I liked it. He remembered, or maybe Nora reminded him. Either way, I didn't calm. And we sat down opposite each other, the ridge line a quiet backdrop behind us. He looked older than he had at the wedding, shoulders tighter, eyes slower. "I didn't come to argue," he said carefully, "or defend anything." I nodded once, let him fill the air. "I think we misread the situation." I waited. "We thought you were just staying out of it, that you didn't want to be involved." I tilted my head slightly. "So you erased me?" "No," he said quickly, "not on purpose." Silence again. It was always the space between his words that said the most. He took a breath, leaned forward. Bailey's not doing great, the comments, the brands, all of it, it hit fast. Consequences tend to arrive that way, I said. He didn't argue. I know we messed up, but it's our wedding, we'd still like to share the video just once. No ads, no campaigns, just something personal. I stood and walked back into the house, leaving him on the porch. When I returned, I placed a manila envelope on the table between us. He opened it, read the first line. His brow creased. It's a release, I said. You're allowed to post the wedding video, one time, no edits, no paid content attached, no monetization, present or future. He looked up, and if we don't follow that. I shut it down, I said, immediately, permanently. He held the envelope like it might break. Bailey won't like this. She doesn't have to. He exhaled, you really don't care what she thinks of you, do you? I paused, I care what you think, but that doesn't change the terms. He didn't sign it, not yet, but he didn't leave it behind either. Before he stood, he said softly, you didn't have to do this. No, I said, but I did, so you wouldn't keep pretending I didn't. He walked down the steps, coffee cup still full in his hand. Later that night, as I folded the same set of towels for the third time, my phone buzzed. Nora. Hey, just checking, you okay? They both seem stressed, but I'm proud of you. I smiled at the screen, really smiled this time, not because of the praise, but because she saw it, the shape of it. Me. I'm fine, they'll catch up. Outside, the wind picked up, leaves scattered across the gravel like shuffled paper. In my mind, I pictured Bailey reading the release, the fine print, the boundaries she'd never thought would apply to her. This time the stage had rules. And I held the lights. It went live on a Sunday afternoon. A new post on Bailey's profile, edited wedding footage, polished down to 3 minutes and 13 seconds. The lighting was warmer, the transitions softer. All the chaos and background chatter from the original footage had been carefully muted or clipped out. And so had I. No shots of me arriving early. No glimpse of my seat near the kitchen doors. No cutaways to my face during the ceremony or during the toast. That moment, the one where Bailey lifted her glass and said, no sponsors, no favors, no strings, had vanished entirely. In its place was music, a trending instrumental loop, the kind influencers use when they're trying to sound vulnerable without risking too much. She posted it with a caption. Our favorite day, pure joy, just the two of us, forever grateful. The video racked up views quickly. But something was off. The comments weren't celebratory, they were searching. Wait, where's your mill? Didn't she come? Wasn't this filmed at the Ridge? What happened with the licensing thing? Didn't someone say she paid for it? Then the real turn came. Someone, I still don't know who, uploaded a side-by-side comparison. Bailey's new video on one side, unfiltered clips on the other, pulled from guests, stories and reels that never got deleted. One clip showed Bailey's full toast, including the part where she said, we did this all ourselves, zero help. Another showed me walking the grounds during the rehearsal, quiet in the background, unnoticed. And underneath a caption that read, here's who really owns the Ridge. It spread faster than anything she'd ever curated. By Tuesday morning, 2 more sponsors had dropped her. One issued a short statement, we don't support false representation, especially when it erases contributions from women who built the foundation others stand on. Another simply removed her entirely from their campaign page. Her followers noticed, they always do. The top comment on her next post wasn't mean, it was measured, it read. Imagine mocking the woman who paid for the view behind you. 8,000 likes, no response. I didn't say anything. I didn't comment. I didn't even call Debbie. Instead, I drove to the Ridge just before sunset, parked by the side lot where I always do, and walked the long path to the overlook. The wind had picked up, colder now, with the season folding into itself. I pulled out my phone, took one photo. No people, no filters, just the land, just the view. I posted it with no caption. Within the hour, it had quietly passed 10,000 likes. No one tagged me. No one needed to. I stood there a while longer, watching the light fade, until even the gravel under my feet disappeared into shadow. And still I stayed. Let her cut me from the frame. I'd already outlasted the camera. The rebrand arrived dressed like reinvention, but it smelled like retreat. On a Thursday morning, Bailey unveiled her new chapter with an all-neutral grid, a streamlined username, and a fresh bio. Bailey Sloan Quiet Luxury, Intentional Living, Unaffiliated. Gone was the Mitchell surname. Gone were the Ridge tags, the filtered golden hour wedding shots, the tableware brand collaborations. Gone, too, were the hundreds of archived posts that once built the illusion she'd now abandoned. It was cleaner, yes, but also emptier. She captioned her first post with a line that felt manufactured in a focus group. Sometimes growth means subtraction. But the internet doesn't forget. And neither does metadata. Within 48 hours, traces surfaced. Old sponsored content still carried alt text that read at Bela Mitchell and location data that pinged back to the Ridge. Pinterest boards credited her wedding inspiration to Mitchell View events. Even her wedding website, briefly deactivated, was scraped by a bot and reindexed, complete with vendor tags and the original tagline, authenticity in every frame. But what hit hardest wasn't code. It was a florist. A regional wedding blog, the kind that hovered between gossip and gratitude, posted a retrospective titled, "Who Really Curated Asheville's Most Viral Wedding?" They contacted vendors. One florist, mid-60s, third-generation shop owner, gave a quote without hesitation. "Clara Mitchell, absolute class, paid on time, tipped in cash, showed up early to thank the crew, can't say the same for the bride." It wasn't meant as an attack. But Bailey took it as one. By Monday, she'd filed civil claims against the florist for defamation and a vague cease and desist against the Ridge itself, citing reputational harm and misrepresented ownership implications. Debbie forwarded me the filing with one word typed beneath it. Baseless. I didn't panic. I brewed tea. Then I read it line by line: slander, loss of sponsorship, emotional distress. But beneath the legal jargon, the subtext was clear. She'd lost control of the story and wanted someone to bleed for it. Too late. The Ridge wasn't hers to wound. Protected by LLC, fortified under the family trust, and blanketed with Debbie's airtight operational clauses, the venue stood untouched. The case was dismissed in 6 days. No countersuit, no press release. Just silence. We let the paperwork speak. But I wasn't done. Buried in my drafts folder was a trademark application. I'd written it months ago, after the wedding, after the toast, after the moment she called it all hours while standing on ground I'd bought in cash. It only needed a signature and a fee. That week I filed it. The Ridge at Mitchell View. Registered, protected, named. No need for announcement. Just presence. 3 weeks later, the new signage arrived. Sanded cedar, bronze letters understated. No gilded logo, no hashtags. Just a name that couldn't be edited out. It was installed at the entrance, the same one Bailey had once filmed herself dancing in front of, barefoot, hands raised to the sky, captioned, "Can't believe this is ours." Now it was Mitchell View. No mention of her, just the permanence of fact. That afternoon, Nora texted me a screenshot. One of Bailey's new followers had commented on a post. "Do you still work with wedding venues?" Bailey replied, "Currently independent, exploring new spaces, not affiliated with prior projects." And underneath, another comment, anonymous, sharp. "Hard to be affiliated when your mill owns the land." No reply. No delete. Just the slow rot of narrative loss. By dusk, I was at the Ridge, tea in hand, office window open to the light. Debbie stood with Nora in the bridal suite, reviewing linen samples. They didn't know I was watching, but I did, the way Nora carried herself now, the way she leaned into the space without performing for it. I thought of Bailey staring down at her phone, seeing the comment, seeing the name, seeing the thing she once tried to own, renamed. Legacy wasn't volume. It was continuity. That evening, I added the signed trademark paperwork to the drawer where the deed lived. Then I paused. Not because it was sentimental, but because everything inside that drawer had weight. Earned weight. The next morning, I found Nora outside sweeping the path to the reception barn. She didn't see me. But a bird landed on the rail near her, small, black-eyed still. She looked at it and whispered without turning. "Looks like the right kind of guest." And kept sweeping. She didn't flinch when the wind blew. Didn't check her reflection in the window. She just worked. That's how I knew she'd stay. Not because she'd asked to inherit anything, but because she never assumed it was owed. It started the way most real things do, not with a launch but with a whisper. A folded flyer. Cream cardstock, navy ink, no logo, no social handle, just a single line at the top printed in serif font. Mitchellview Community Days. Beneath it, smaller. Reduced event rates for women 60 plus celebrating family milestones. No hashtags, no rollout campaign, just a stack of them tucked inside a wooden brochure stand at the corner of the Ridge's new entryway, the one Nora sanded herself and stained to match the cedar beams in the barn. No one announced it. The word still got out. The first to book was Elaine, a recently retired biology teacher with a shy laugh and a planner full of sticky notes. Her daughters called 2 weeks later asking if they could hang paper lanterns for her party. I told them yes and left extra nails near the beams just in case. Elaine arrived early. She set up photo albums at each table. One of them held a picture of her in a lab coat from 1987 holding a frog and laughing. She looked proud, not posed. 2 weeks later, we hosted an 80th birthday brunch for a grandmother who still gardened in clogs and called everyone darlin'. Her family brought mason jars of peach preserves and cloth napkins embroidered with initials. They played jazz during setup. There were no photographers. The following morning, a young woman, someone's niece, I think, posted a photo from the brunch on a local community page. Just one image, a long table under soft light with the caption, "This view feels like home." No tags, no mentions. But I knew it had landed. I also knew who else had seen it. Because that afternoon, the Ridge's inbox lit up, a new inquiry from a boutique PR agency representing someone looking to reconnect with a space that honors quiet legacy. The request came with a lookbook, warm linen tones, mood boards titled Reclaiming Intention, and a proposed photo shoot at sunset on the same overlook where Bailey once stood barefoot, captioning it "All Hours." Debbie forwarded me the email. Her message read only, "I assume the answer's still no." I replied, "Still is." There was no reply, no follow-up. Bailey didn't post about it, she didn't subtweet, but 2 days later she posted a photo of a hand-stitched table runner and a ceramic bowl, captioned, "Thinking of hosting a women's retreat, somewhere new, somewhere earned." The comments were minimal. I didn't engage. I had other things to tend to. That week, we finalized details for a nonprofit gala, a fundraiser hosted by a local group that mentors high school girls in event planning and hospitality. Most of them had never walked a venue like this. They didn't want a performance. They wanted to learn how it all worked. So I called Nora. "Would you want to help organize?" I asked. Her answer came before I finished. "Yes," she said, "God, yes." Now we stood in the reception barn together, reviewing a mock table setup. The light outside was soft and slate-colored, late winter pressing into early spring. Nora's hair was in a loose bun, her clipboard was tucked under one arm, her hands were steady. She didn't hover, she assessed. "This feels like something I want to be part of," she said, "not just work for." I handed her the floral palette chart and nodded toward the open window. "Pick the tones that won't argue with the view." She smiled, but her gaze lingered outside, across the ridge line. Later that night, she texted me a photo someone else had taken during setup. It was grainy, warm, and untagged. Me and her standing at the barn doors, RB. Axe to the camera, looking out toward the hills. She didn't caption it publicly. She sent it only to me, with a message below. "I don't want to just inherit something, I want to become someone worth trusting with it." I read it twice. Then walked to my desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out the trust transfer file I hadn't looked at in months. Nora's name was already penciled in on the first line. Beside it, 2 blank signature fields. One for now. One for later. The kind you leave open for someone who's learning what it really means to stay. Bailey disappeared the way performance always does, not with a slam but with a soft, accidental fade. Her last post remained like an abandoned storefront, the kind with good lighting and no foot traffic. A linen-bound journal, a ceramic mug, and the caption, "Taking time to rethink what really matters." No tags, no links, just stillness. The comments were turned off, the engagement stalled out at numbers that once would have panicked her, and beyond the filtered image, the absence said more than the caption ever could. The algorithm stopped recommending her content by day 3. By day 6, even the people who'd once called her authentic had moved on. I didn't say anything, not to Debbie, not to Nora, not even to myself when I saw the post while scrolling one night after dinner. I just kept folding towels in the guest suite and let the silence settle where her noise used to live. 2 days later, I opened my email to find something unexpected, a message from Landon. No subject line. No greeting, no emojis, just 5 plain sentences. "I know we didn't see it. I know you did more than we realized. I'm sorry it took public fallout for me to understand it. I'm grateful. I hope you're well." No sign-off. No attachment. No ask. I read it once, then again. And then I printed it, quietly, methodically, and folded it into the back of my journal. I slid it behind an old pressed wildflower Nora gave me last fall and a copy of the original trust filing from the first day the ridge became ours. I didn't respond, not because I was angry, but because sometimes silence isn't punishment, it's preservation. Words can be a way of rewriting, but silence, that stays fixed. Later that week, Nora showed up at the barn office with a clipboard in one hand and a cappuccino in the other. Her hair was in a low braid, no makeup, sneakers still wet from morning dew. She looked like she belonged to the place, not just worked at it. "I've been thinking," she said, standing just inside the doorway. "I want to intern, officially, part-time, maybe weekends. I want to learn how to run something that can't be taken just because someone posts louder." She didn't say Bailey's name. She didn't need to. I stepped past her, opened the back cabinet, and pulled out one of the oldest ledgers we kept, hand-tabbed, ink-smudged, frayed from use. I placed it in her hands. "Start here," I said, "learn who pays, then decide who speaks." She ran her fingers over the edges like it was something sacred. And in a way it was. That afternoon, we walked the perimeter of the venue together. I pointed out the frost-worn patches of gravel that would need replacing before spring. She asked questions about drainage, about event insurance, about off-grid power backup. She jotted notes without fanfare. Bailey, I remembered, never asked about infrastructure. She asked where the light would hit her best at golden hour. As we reached the edge of the tree line, Nora stopped. She looked out over the view, then down at her shoes in the gravel. "It's funny," she said. She thought this place made her, but it was never the view, it was the staying power. I didn't reply, not because I disagreed, but because she'd already said it better than I could. That night, I returned to the office and sat down at the long wood desk. Nora had refinished herself with a palm sander and too many podcasts. I pulled open the drawer and laid out the trust documents again. Her name was already penciled in. The inked lines waited. And for once, they didn't feel like a risk. They felt like a relay. The next morning, Debbie found us both in the reception barn. Nora was sweeping the back porch. I was sorting linen swatches. The light was streaming in quietly through the side windows, golden, gentle, honest. "She told me she bought her own clipboard," Debbie said with a smile. "That's the universal signal of commitment." I chuckled, better than a hashtag. At her desk later, Nora left me a sticky note. "Tomorrow's layout confirmed, linen order submitted. Also, I bought new pens for the ledger, the good kind." Underneath that, in her handwriting, smaller in pencil, "Thank you for not giving up on the part of me I didn't know how to ask for." I stared at it for a long moment. Then folded it. and placed it gently between the last 2 pages of the ledger she'd been working through. Outside, the porch swing creaked softly in the wind. The ridge didn't shimmer. It didn't glow. It simply held. The pen didn't feel heavy, just final. I signed in silence the way I'd signed loan documents, promissory notes, and the original deed to the ridge. But this time, it wasn't acquisition. It was release. Across the table, Nora sat still, her knees pressed together, hands locked around the arms of the chair. She looked younger than usual, not because she was unready, but because she understood exactly what was happening. Next to me, Debbie adjusted her reading glasses and clicked her pen shut. 49%, she confirmed, tapping the page. Placed under Nora Mitchell's name, held in trust until her 21st birthday, eligible for early access if she remains in operational oversight and continues her coursework. Nora blinked once, then again. I thought I was just interning. You were, I said, now you're inheriting. She didn't speak at first. Her face shifted in a dozen directions, shock, confusion, guilt, gratitude, until her breath hitched. You believe in me more than my own parents do. I didn't flinch. I'm not giving you this because I believe in you, I said plainly. I'm giving it to you because you earned it. Debbie nodded in quiet agreement. It's not sentiment, she added, it's structure. Nora laughed, the kind of laugh that catches mid-throat because it's covering something larger. She dabbed her eyes with her sleeve. I don't even know what to do with something like this. I leaned forward. You learn, I said, you don't post it, you don't announce it, you honor it, every week, every invoice, every floorboard you walk across. She nodded slowly, like she was listening to something older than my voice. Debbie slid the final document across the table. Remaining 51% stays with the trust. You remain beneficiary, I remain trustee. You can revoke, amend, or dissolve under private vote, but after your passing. It all reverts to Nora, I finished, unless she gives me reason otherwise. And Bailey, Nora asked cautiously. She's not part of this process, Debbie said. She's not entitled to be. I didn't look up, I didn't need to. She'd removed herself from the soil the moment she chose spectacle over stewardship. Let the silence carry that too. That afternoon, Nora and I walked the perimeter, this time with a clipboard in her hand, not borrowed, not temporary, her own. She asked questions about taxes, roof repairs, insurance riders. She took photos of the loose railings by the back fence and made a note to ask the groundskeeper about resurfacing the gravel. I used to think legacy meant loud, she said, somewhere near the rose arbor. I raised an eyebrow, and now? Now I think it means staying somewhere long enough to see what breaks and fixing it before anyone else notices. I didn't respond. She answered her own question. That night, Debbie finalized the web copy with our developer. No new branding, no launch party. Just one new line, placed carefully at the bottom of the home page. Family operated since 2023. No footnote, no flourish. Just truth that didn't need a headline. Later, I returned to the office alone. The barn lights glowed dim behind the frosted windows. Nora had left her clipboard on the reception counter, already color-coded for tomorrow's client tour. I opened the drawer where I kept the deed. The original was still there, folded beside my old watch and the service pin I used to wear to finance conferences in another life. I added the trust transfer to the stack, one new signature beneath mine, pencil lines becoming permanence. It didn't feel like surrender. It felt like sequence. Out on the back porch I saw her. Nora. Sweeping not for show but for readiness, preparing the space for morning like it was hers to welcome because now it was. She didn't see me watching. She didn't need to. That was the difference. Bailey had needed cameras to prove she mattered to the land. Nora was becoming the kind of woman the land might choose to remember. And that mattered more. Bailey came back in the only way she knew how, trying to be funny about it. The post went live on a Tuesday morning, grainy black and white, captioned with faux humility. Remember when I fake-owned a wedding venue, face loudly still not over that plot twist. The hashtags were performative. Growth. Learning curve. Humbled queen. But the reaction wasn't what she wanted. A few emojis, a handful of OMG same s, and then quiet. The algorithm, it turned out, had learned to look past her. People remembered not just the lie but the way she'd dressed it up, the way she'd clapped back post after post like owning the last word would change the story. The comments were thin, polite, distant. One reads simply, "It's weird watching someone joke about burning a bridge they didn't build." No response. No deletion. Just one more post in a feed that no longer moved. That same morning, I walked the grounds before the light fully settled. The gravel still held a trace of frost. The air smelled of pine and bread dough from the prep kitchen across the barn. 3 weddings were scheduled that weekend, all quiet, all paid in full, all confirmed without discount or drama. One bride had requested no hashtags. Another had included her grandmother in the ceremony planning. The third had handwritten every place card. They didn't want a moment, they wanted memory, and that difference, that distinction was everything. At the top of the path near the chapel steps, I paused. Nora was already waiting. She held a slim binder, professional-grade, laminated tabs, color-coded schedule grids, her first full client packet. No help from Debbie, no edits from me. Just her. I took it, flipped through slowly, every column aligned, every contingency accounted for. Debbie arrived a moment later, caught the tail end of my review and raised one brow. "She's got your spine," she said, "and maybe your thresholds, too." Nora didn't beam, she just nodded like someone who knew the compliment wasn't decoration, it was earned. Later that afternoon, I printed the venue's first annual report. Nothing flashy, a modest profit, a healthy reserve, and a full roster of 5-star reviews from guests who used phrases like dignified service and seamless execution. No influencers listed, no drama recapped. Just clean lines and earned respect. I placed the report into the same folder that held the deed and the transfer letter. The drawer clicked shut with that familiar weight, the kind that meant everything was where it should be. He came around sunset. "Landon." No warning, no text, just the sound of tires on gravel, slow and deliberate. I met him near the garden path. No hug, no apology, just his hands in his jacket pockets and that same unsure look he used to wear as a teenager when he knew he was out of bounds but trying to stay steady. "I read the annual," he said, "and saw the update online." "The footer." He nodded, family operated. I didn't fill the silence, that was his job now. He glanced out toward the view, then back at me. "I finally get it." "Good," I said, "I'm tired of explaining it." He half smiled, but it didn't reach all the way. "You think she'll ever understand?" I shrugged, "That's not my assignment anymore." He didn't argue, just stood there with me, quiet, like he finally realized the view didn't need an audience to mean something. After a moment he said softly, "Nora's doing good work." "She is." "You proud?" "I'm consistent," I said. "Pride fades, process doesn't." He smiled again, real this time, then nodded once and headed back to his car. That night, Nora left a small note on my desk, handwritten, simple. "Tomorrow's layouts confirmed, linen order submitted. Also, I bought my own clipboard." Underneath that in pencil, "Thank you for not giving up on the part of me I didn't know how to ask for." I folded the note and tucked it between the ledger pages. Outside, the wind stirred just enough to rattle the porch swing. The ridge line didn't glow, it didn't shimmer. It just stood. Permanent, unmoved. Just like I needed it to. The luncheon wasn't advertised. No press, no partnerships, no brand-backed invitations. Just folded place cards handwritten by Nora and a buffet catered by the same woman who'd brought cinnamon rolls to every committee meeting for the last 20 years. Staff, community partners, 2 retired electricians who'd wired the barn before it became trendy, a florist who remembered when florals were seasonal, not sculpted. No dress code, no hashtags. Just cloth napkins that had been ironed twice and centerpieces made from whatever had been clipped that morning from the ridge's edge, goldenrod, dried sage, wild thyme still clinging to green. I wore slacks, Debbie wore her signature black turtleneck, Nora wore flats and a linen apron tied twice around her waist. She had a clipboard tucked under her arm, but she never checked it. The ridge looked settled, not curated, not posed. Just sure of itself. Near the end of the meal, I stood, no glass raised, no fork tapped. Just a breath. This view, I said, keeping my voice low but certain, is for those who tended the soil. There was no applause. Just nods. In silence, the good kind, the kind that follows something earned. Debbie glanced sideways at me, approving but unsurprised. She knew how I spoke when I meant it. Nora, standing by the railing, lifted her phone and took a picture, not of the place settings, not of the table. Of me and Debbie on the upper balcony, the sun hitting us square in the shoulders, casting long, clean shadows behind us. No filter, just glass and light. Somewhere across town, Bailey scrolled past it. The algorithm showed it to her anyway. She paused, not long enough to like it, not long enough to comment, just long enough to see the caption Nora had written. Built by women who stayed. She put her phone down after that. Didn't reshare, didn't spin it. Just moved on. That afternoon, I walked through the venue after everyone left. The tables had been cleared, the floral scraps bundled into compost. The napkins had already been laundered. No crumbs, no glitter, no forgotten centerpieces. Just stillness. I stepped into the office, locked the door behind me, habit now, but still satisfying. The framed deed hung where it always had, centered between the window and the bookshelf. I looked at it not to admire, but to remember. It didn't hum or shimmer or say anything at all. But I smiled anyway. Legacy doesn't speak, it waits. A soft rustle caught my attention. I turned toward the window. A small bird had landed on the sill, speckled brown, light-footed, head tilted like it was checking if it had the right place. Behind me, Nora whispered, "Looks like the right kind of guest." I didn't respond. Just watched the bird look once more into the room, then take flight again, not hurried, just sure. That evening, the wind settled low, dragging the scent of pine and peppery ash through the open windows. Somewhere in the barn, a broom swept rhythmically, steady and familiar. Nora was still here, not because I asked, because she understood that real ownership isn't ours or equity. It's presence. It's repetition. It's being the last one to lock up, not the first one to post. I closed the ledger, switched off the desk lamp, and looked once more at the view through the window. It wasn't dramatic, just long, steady lines of hill and treetop stretched quiet beneath a lavender sky. She once laughed that it was hers. Laughed in captions, in voiceovers, in sponsored grace. But the land never laughed back. It just grew with who stayed.